Good morning, year 3 and 4, and welcome to today's lesson. I hope that you guys are doing really well at home and that your writing is coming along quite nicely. So last week, just a recap of what we have been doing. Last week we wrote a call task. That was the first day from a video of this character going to a tomb. And there were some things that happened to him along the way. Then you were to analyze a text just to identify different features. Then you learned about different grammatical components such as expanded noun phrases, and also you learned about how to extend sentences using subordinating clauses and so forth. And then this week we have planned using a boxed up text. Then you have a boxed up plan. Then yesterday you wrote out your story. Rather than a story, it's more of a descriptive setting description of sorts. And then now today you are going to embark in the next step of your writing, which is probably one of the most important steps that there is in writing, and that is to edit. So why do we edit? Well, we edit because we make mistakes all the time. I know that when I write, I make mistakes, and even when I am trying to, check my work, I sometimes overlook those steps because I think that my writing is what my brain is telling me, oh, that sounds like it should be, but in reality, when I actually read it out loud, it doesn't sound as good as it obviously sounded in my mind. So that's why one of the first things that I would like you to do is to read it out loud and really hear your sentences, because there is a common mistake that we all make, and is that when it is your own writing, you don't tend to see the mistakes that there is in your writing, that there are in your writing, unless you actually read them out loud. Because if you read it in your mind believes that is correct. Okay, so I'm just going to read this through, but we're going to concentrate on one thing at a time. The first thing, we're going to, I guess, how you should consider editing is almost like a layer process, which we're going to do one thing at a time, because there's so many things that we can correct and that we can up level, but you're going to do it one at a time. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to read my first paragraph out loud and see if it sounds okay. And then from there, I'm going to again go to the next stage, which I'm going to show you in a second. So again, I'm just going to read it for you. So, standing a couple of footsteps away from this old bronze-looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter first, in case something mysterious or dangerous is inside. But if I face my fears, I don't know what's in store for me. Now, just reading it once over, I can already start to detect that there are some sentences that are not quite as good as they could be. Now, there's many things okay and good with this particular model, but again, there's also things that we need to change to up-level our writing. And this is, as I said, it is one of the most important aspects of the writing process, because now is when we take our first draft and we really hone it, we really make it as tight and as close to our final draft as we possibly can. Again, this, in the first paragraph we said we're going to build the tension, we wanted to add description, and we achieved that by, and this is just a refresher, we achieved that by two things. We started with a subordinating clause, so standing a couple of footsteps away from this old bronze looking tomb. All of that we call a subordinate clause. It depends on the main clause which comes after it. If we start with that at the beginning, what we're doing as a writer was lowering down the action. And what that does to the reader, it builds that suspense. So if we want to create suspense, one strategy that you can use is the one that has been used here. Subordinate clause at the beginning to slow the action down, because the action, I felt nervous to enter first, that is going to be the action of this particular sentence. And if it comes afterwards, then it's delaying it, therefore creating that suspense that we want. So it's something that they have done really well here. And also they've added this old bronze looking tomb. That would be my expanded noun phrase. Again, adding detail to description. Okay, so let's rewind. The first thing that we're going to look for is any spelling. And this is probably the easiest thing to start with. So we're just going to do it very quickly and just try to recognize if there is any spelling mistakes. If I see a word that doesn't quite look right, then what I'm going to do is, if I don't know how to spell it, I can go to the dictionary and use that as a resource. Okay, so standing a couple of footsteps away from this old bronze looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter first in case something mysterious or dangerous. Okay, I know there's something off with mysterious and dangerous, and they have the same ending, but I don't think this is quite right. So the person who spelled it in this particular text, they said mysteриus, but obviously that is an incorrect spelling, so it is actually the correct spelling would be, and I'm going to do it, sorry, spelling, let's do it in blue. So my spelling is going to write mysterious, okay? And dangerous has the same spelling as well. So if you're making this type of mistake, they're usually going to make the same mistake with words that end in the same pattern. So make sure that if you have made one mistake, check the other ones that have the same patterns, because you probably may have done the same as well. And dangerous. Okay. And I think that are the only two words, which is pretty good, that I have spelled incorrectly in this particular text. Okay, so once spelling has been done, then what I suggest is then let's look at the structure of the sentences. And this is the most difficult part. This is the most difficult part simply because you have to have a really good understanding of your main clauses and your subordinate clauses. And if you don't have that, then all of this is not going to make any sense, okay? So anything that I tell you right now, if you don't really have a really good understanding of subordinate clauses and main clauses, it can be quite tricky, okay? So as I said before, standing a couple of footsteps away from this old bronze looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter first. Now that sounds doesn't sound quite right, okay? I know what they want to say, but really, this is not how we want to say it. It sounds a little bit clunky, okay? So to avoid that, let's think of a different way of actually writing this out, because there's so much that we can use in this sentence, or in this clause, but there's also just a few tweaks that we can make to make it even better. So and this is what I do for every single sentence. So standing a couple of footsteps away from this, instead of saying from this, I would just use a different determiner, in this case an article, and I'm going to use my red. I'm going to use the. We use the when it is a precise thing that we are referring to. Okay, same as this, but I prefer to use the in this particular case. So standing a couple from the old bronze looking tomb, okay, I felt nervous to enter. Okay, I felt nervous to enter. How about we maybe even stop it there, full stop there, okay? Finish that thought, because standing a couple of footsteps away from this old bronze looking tomb, I felt nervous. Brilliant. That's excellent. I think they just tried to add a little too much in this one sentence, and it just became a little bit clunky. And sometimes we do that. I do that all the time. I just try to pack too many things into one sentence, and sometimes how about separating it and making it two. Okay, now we need to have this little bit here that we have obviously cut off of sorts. So first, to enter first, in case something mysterious or dangerous is inside. So now that we cut that, this is when the tricky part begins. So standing a couple of footsteps away from this all bronze looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter. And then I can take away first, because obviously we don't need it any longer. And then we can say, actually, this is another thing, and this is why this is very tricky. Instead of using actually a full stop, I'm just going to use a comma. Why? How I decided to use a comma there? Because this right here cannot stand on its own, so I can do that. I can use a comma. So, and that actually extends my sentence. So standing a couple of footsteps away from this all bronze looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter, in case something mysterious or dangerous. Instead of is, how about we use was? We're going to read it again. This may be incorrect. We're just trying here. Was inside. Okay. I think now we can put a full stop there. So let's read the sentence again from the top. So standing a couple of footsteps away from this all bronze looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter, in case something mysterious or dangerous was inside. I think that sounds a little bit better already, okay? Now we're going to put a full stop there, because again, they are creating another complex sentence, but now we're going to try to separate it a little bit more. So, and obviously I have my capital letter here. So if I face my fears, I don't know what's in store for me. Now again, this sounds a little bit off. I know what they want to say, but this is not quite accurate, okay? And it sounds a little bit clunky. So I know that what I want to say is that if I face my fears, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to be in there. But they haven't really articulated it in that way. So if I face my fears, I don't know what I am going to face. Okay? Simply put. Okay? Just that's how I would put it. But again, you can decide to do something else. But as you can see, this is the process that you need to go through. Let me just write this down before I forget. So if I face my fears, I don't know what, I'll take that. I don't know what I will have to face. I face my fears, I don't know what I don't know what I will have to face. Okay. Now again, we haven't really changed drastically my text, however, it just sounds more cohesive. There's a pause when we need to pause. We have separated my clauses just to create that effect that we want to have. Without that punctuation and without these key words, my text doesn't sound as cohesive and it doesn't give the flow that we wanted. So I'm going to read it one more time just to see if I have achieved to a high degree that flow, cohesiveness, and that obviously description and the build of that tension. Standing a couple of footsteps away from the old bronze-looking tomb, I felt nervous to enter, in case something mysterious or dangerous was inside. If I face my fears, I don't know what I'll have to face. Now again, this sentence, we could really play around with it because I'm not 100% happy with it, but I think it's a lot better than it was before. And this is when editing really can take it. You can take it to the next level. You can be as minimalistic as you want, or you can really try to hone in and create that as close to perfect sentence as you can for the desired effect that you want to have on the reader, of course. So this is just an example, and this is the first paragraph that you will have to do yourselves before you go into your own text. And this is how long it has taken me to do a few lines, 2 sentences really. So I can only imagine how long it will take you to do your whole text, especially if you have many paragraphs, okay? So again, it is a slow process, it is a very important process, and it needs to be slow. You cannot rush through this. You can use your dictionaries, you can use your online resources, you can use thesauruses, you can read to the wall, you can read to your parents, you can read to your brothers, sisters, you can read to anyone to make sure that when you are saying it out loud, does it sound correct? Because if it doesn't sound correct, then it's most likely that you have made a grammatical mistake somewhere along the lines. And actually, having someone else read it as well out loud, it works really well because they are forced to have to read what is exactly on the paper. They're not doing like us when we write. We are, in our mind, we're reading it how we think it should be, but obviously we make those mistakes, which is part of the process, and that's why editing is so important. Again, it would be nice to see your editing, your first draft and then your edited draft sent to us, because we would like to see that process. It is, again, the most important process in the writing process. It is very easy to write a first draft. It is very difficult to actually edit it, and it is very easy to write a final draft. So this is where the meat and bones come in, and you really need to spend your time here. But again, if you have any questions, please do email us, because we are here to help you through this process. I hope that you enjoy the sunny day, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Bye.